yellows show above normal, and the image on the right shows the precipitation, where again, the red indicates the drier conditions and the greens are more the wetter or near normal conditions. You can see for Nevada, we've seen generally above normal temperatures with the exception of eastern Nevada, which was just below normal, and the similar pattern with precipitation. Very dry conditions over southern, western, and parts of northern Nevada, and a little bit wetter conditions or near normal over eastern Nevada. Looking at back to the beginning of the water year, which is October 1st, 2020, and this encompasses all of our winter and spring precipitation, shows well below normal precipitation statewide. How this relates to our snowpack, typically we see our snowpack peak around April 1st, and this year we peaked below normal statewide, and currently our snowpack has been diminishing very quickly. The snow has been melting rapidly due to warm temperatures, sunny skies, and our windy conditions we've seen in the last month. So currently we are below about the 30th percentile for snowpack of what we would normally see this time of year, and a little bit higher over parts of north central Nevada, but still below normal. This is how our drought conditions, which obviously take into account all of the recent precipitation. We are currently in a state of exceptional drought, which is the worst drought, most severe drought classification over southern and eastern Nevada, which is this darker maroon color. The red indicates extreme drought. So again, much of Nevada is still in extreme drought, and then a little bit better conditions towards the Idaho and Oregon borders of moderate drought, but still we are seeing drought concerns statewide, and this really plays a role into our fire season. For one, we are expecting drier fuel moistures that will likely peak early and be on the decline, so much lower fuel moisture is expected throughout the fire season. This also impacts our fine fuel growth across the state. Typically, we do not see a robust green up or new growth of our grasses across Nevada, and that is a big component to our fire seasons. So this is another way to look at drought. This is from the year 2000 on the left. This is for the entire state of Nevada, and this is through 2021 on the right. So you can clearly pick out our years where we've had longer periods of more extensive, more severe drought. So a couple of things to take away from this slide is our current conditions. Currently, we are in that exceptional state of drought. And you can see from the level of our exceptional drought in Nevada, we have not seen conditions this severe in the last 20 years. So that is certainly notable when we are looking at our fuel moisture and some of our die-off of some of our larger plants. Another thing we wanted to note again is the areas that we haven't seen drought. And looking at our low elevation, mostly BLM fire season, looking at our acres burned across Nevada, these black boxes represent years that we've seen above normal acreage burned in our lower elevation BLM lands. And you can see these largely fall in years that we do not have drought. And this is simply because we have more moisture. We are seeing more fine fuel growth, and our grasses carry a lot of our fires at low elevations. And it's typically those fast moving grass fires that contribute to a large number of acreage very quickly in Nevada. So again, these years in the black boxes are where we see above normal acres burned for the lower elevations of Nevada. Now looking at the same schematic and looking at our mid to higher elevation, more our Forest Service NDF fires, and you can see in the black boxes, this is typically where we see our more notable higher elevation fires. These don't necessarily correlate to years that we see above normal acreage, but it does not mean that they are not significant. And so you can see it's the years of drought. That's clearly where we see our lower fuel moistures. More of those larger fuels are more available to burn. So that's increasing our fuel loading. Here are some of the fires across the state that have been larger in some of these significant drought years. You can see down in southern Nevada, Carpenter 1, which was in 2013. You have Waterfall in western Nevada in 2004, and then a slew of other fires across the state throughout the years. So again, this year, even though we are not expecting maybe an above normal acreage burned for our lower elevations, for one, it does not mean that we're not going to have low elevation fires. So I want that to be clear. We still are expecting low elevation fires. We get them every year. And some of these fires certainly could be large fires, but this is just does not line up with the type of year where we see above normal acreage in our low elevations. Again, it's this mid and higher elevations that are most concerning. So with that, we'll just go into our weather expectations for the rest of the fire season. So the top row in our red box here shows our temperature expectations for the next 4 months. The bottom row shows our precipitation expectations. You can see for Nevada, we're expecting very warm conditions, especially over the southern areas of the state. We're really statewide above normal temperatures and very dry conditions. We will see some storm systems over the next couple of weeks in May that bring us occasional periods of some showers and thunderstorms and some cooler temperatures, but these will be fairly short-lived, and we are expecting, especially towards June, to see those warmer and drier conditions really dry out our fuels and rapidly melt the rest of the snowfall. As we get towards July, typically we see the monsoon start bringing moisture to the southern part of the state. We are expecting that to develop this year, which is a big change from the last 2 years where we really have not had much monsoon moisture. But until this moisture arrives, we are still in an enhanced state of fire potential, especially over the southern and eastern portion of the state. So we'll be watching that moisture as it arrives to hopefully start decreasing our fire potential in the south and eastern portion of the state later in the fire season. But again, that still remains to be seen. So here's our current outlook, our fire potential outlook, and obviously it shows the entire country. But for Nevada, our main concerns going through May and June, which are these top images, are the southern and eastern portions of the state, especially in the mid and higher elevations. But also some of these areas over eastern Nevada did not see compaction of their fine fuels from last year with low elevation snowfall. So there will still be a carryover fine fuel component that's already dead on the ground that will be available to burn in some local areas. And then as we move towards July and August, main concerns still over the eastern portion of the state, but also probably not evident in your view, part of the Sierra front is also in this above normal fire potential concern, especially in those mid to higher elevations. Down low, we have not seen much fine fuel, but again, it's those dry mid and high elevations, especially as the snow melts and fuel moistures drop, that'll be the main concern. So that's all I have for the fire potential outlook for you guys. And again, thank you for allowing me to present.
Thanks, Gina. We appreciate that. Next up, we have a fuels profile and fire restrictions from Paul Peterson with the BLM here in Nevada, our fire management officer. Paul?
All right, thank you. So I'm Paul Peterson, State Fire Management Officer for BLM Nevada, and Gina gave a great overview of where we are with the drought, where we are with fine fuels, and just want to emphasize that a lot of our live fuel moistures are at average or well below average for this time of year. And that means it's more susceptible to wildland fire and also more susceptible to damage. So we encourage everybody to recreate responsibly. So tying into that is each agency is fire restrictions, and so each agency has the ability to implement fire restrictions between BLM, Forest Service, Nevada Division of Forestry, and local counties. And the goal of that is to reduce the risk of any human-caused fires. And depending on where the location is and what the situation, it can restrict, campfires to shooting exploding targets, and also restricting fireworks, which are also illegal within Nevada. And so as the fire season progresses and we see what the risk is, and we see what the human activity is out on our wildlands, there's a high probability of fire restrictions, especially this year, to reduce those threats of human-caused fires. Current fire restrictions right now are effect in Southern Nevada on both BLM and Forest Service managed lands, and those can be found at nevadafireinfo.org. And we will keep that website up to date of the current fire restrictions as well as current fire activity. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Paul. Next up, we have Gwen Sanchez, and she is the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest Fire Management Officer, to share a little info on fire prevention in Nevada. Gwen?
Yeah, thank you, Rita. So looking at where we're at nationally, last year and over the last few years, 87% of our fires were human starts. That's an astonishing number, and a number that we definitely need to get down. Across Nevada, we do a little better, but it's still pretty high. Last year, we saw an all-time high with 67% of our fires being human caused. In previous years, that's been closer to around the low 40% of our fires being human caused. With the fuels profile that Paul just spoke to, it's going to be extra diligent that you do your part this year in helping us to prevent those human caused fires. We need your help more than ever to be able to reduce the amount of starts that our agencies have to respond to. In an effort to try to educate our publics, we have, as the governor mentioned, launched a wildfire awareness campaign that will continue to go throughout the entire summer. This effort is intended to educate our publics on ways that they can help prevent fires and help others in prevention of fires. We're currently in the middle of an interagency fire prevention team tour that's happening across the state of Nevada, coming to local communities in and around the state, again, just to try to help educate our publics on ways that they can be fire safe when they're out recreating within our lands, and also just how to generally be fire conscious in and around our lands. In addition to that, I'm encouraging each of you to look at different tools of mitigation to help save life and property across the state. There are a lot of things that you can do in a prevention effort and mitigation effort that'll make a significant difference. Part of that is the Living with Fire program that we've launched across Nevada. And I'm encouraging you all to visit that website and listen in on several of the different podcasts that they have going throughout the summer that's part of this larger prevention campaign. Again, I can't say enough how important prevention will be going into this fire season. And I'm asking you to do your part in helping us lower the number of fire responses we have to go to. Thanks, Rita.
Oh, am I still muted? No, we're good. All right, thanks, Gwen. Sorry about that. A little technical glitch back there. All right, well, we will have Casey, our Nevada Division of Forestry State Forester Fire Warden, close it up for us and talking about fire resources and readiness for this year. Casey, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am speaking on our readiness. So all of the agencies, state, federal, and local government have brought on all of our seasonal firefighters this year, and they are here and they are training right now to be ready to fight fire this summer. In fact, I think some of them have already fought fire this summer. They've been out a couple days on the job and they were already out. We have a regular complement of resource responses, apparatus, and personnel. Those exact numbers were sent to you in the slideshow on page 14, but they include air attack platforms, single engine air tankers, helicopters, engines, hand crews, tenders, and dozers. All of our agencies collectively work together in fire response. It's whoever's closest available resources come to the fire so that we ensure that the fire hopefully gets out early and stays small. The Forest Service this year does have one additional surge helicopter on contract, as they did last year, to support the ground crews that we have on the ground. The BLM received additional funding to move some of their seasonal positions to permanent positions to better match the fire years that we're seeing. As some of you may recall, the Forest Service was able to also do that last year, and the Division of Forestry was able to do to extend our season as well from 5 months to 9 months in the previous biennia. So we are working to kind of match the fires that we're seeing, the increase in fire starts, as well as the longer duration of the fire season. We learned a lot of lessons from COVID-19 for last year. One of those things was, there's a lot that goes on. There are firefighters on the front lines and they're critical to stopping the fire, but there are a lot of people behind the scenes ensuring their safety and that all the billing gets processed and everybody gets paid for their response. So we did reduce the size of fire camps last year. We actually saw a reduction in our normal camp crud, we call it, sicknesses, and not a large spread of COVID-19 because of precautions we had put in early and we had collectively implemented across all of our agencies. All of those COVID-19 precautions will carry forward into this fire season to ensure our first responders' safety, as well as some of those support roles will be continued to be provided virtually where that's possible to do so. We have agreements in place across the state of Nevada and across all of our agencies, state, federal, local, as well as across the country and even outside of the country for response to beef up if we need to in case of a large fire season. One of the things in closing, I would like to say, just to kind of mimic what the governor said, we are better coordinated than we have been in past years. We've always worked very, very well together in wildfire response. We learned through many years of being jurisdictionally challenged that we had to work better together. And we actually also realized a while back that not only do we have to be highly effective at wildfire suppression, but we also need to work harder at really targeting our limited resources and funding at the areas that are most critical to reduce risk in. So increasing those acres in high priority areas and making sure that we create and maintain fire adapted communities across the state. So we have been working collectively on all of those assets. And as the governor said, we increased our acreage. The BLM should get a high five for that. They treated more acres than any other BLM in the United States this year. So in spite of having the challenges of not having staffing. So we are really working well together, and we are working to try to protect all of the communities and the wildlands that we all love to recreate in. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is Megan Delaney from Governor Sisolak's office. I believe that pulls to a close our planned speakers, which means we've got some time for Q&A from members of the media who are on the call. I think hopefully everyone is very familiar with Zoom by now. So if you could raise your hand and we'll run the Q&A through the raised hand feature. I know we've got so many of our subject matter experts, so I'm hoping that all your questions are for them. But we'll give it a second so everyone can raise their hand. If you can't find the button, it should be under reactions. We have someone who's listed under the name remote. So if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and identifying yourself before you ask your question, that would be great.
Hello, hi, this is Bert Johnson with Nevada Public Radio. Thank you so much. This question, first things first, I wanted to see if this the slideshow would be made available after the presentation. It would be great to have that as a resource.
Thanks for that. I believe our folks from BLM or NDF can get that sent out to the folks who are on the call for reference afterward. Did you want to go forward with that question?
Yes, so thank you for that. And then just moving forward, you know, I'm based up in Reno. Obviously, Washoe County had a lot of impacts from fire in California last year. So I'm wondering about the potential for interstate cooperation during some of the potential large fires up here in the Sierra, knock on wood. But what are the plans shaping up to be for coordinating across state lines?
Thanks for the question. I think hopefully one of our subject matter experts can weigh in on this one for you.
I can take this. So we do work across not only local area, but geographic area, nationally and internationally, as Casey said. We have several local agreements that allow us to move resources between different states. Last year, we had a lot of support from our neighbors to the west from California, not only federally, but our state resources out of California and vice versa. We were able to support them several times when they were in need as well with fires outside and around Susanville and some others that they had going on with our state and federal resources. Because of the federal system and the way that it's organized, we are able to move resources across the state, across several states and nationally as we're needing to. And in addition, when we need those resources, we're able to mobilize those resources in from across the country in order to support our fires. That won't be any different this year. I expect that mobilization effort will continue and continue to work as well as it has in the past. It's a well-oiled machine. I'm really proud of both the state, local, federal government response and our abilities, and I expect that will continue. Anything else from Casey or Paul that I might have missed?
Thank you, Gwen, and thank you for that question. I'll give it a second. I don't think I see any other hands raised to ask a question. We can also use the chat and provide some of these resources after the fact. But seeing no other hand raised, Governor, did you want to? Oh, Daniel, I just see your hand.
I did.
Saw your hand
I'm
came up
ready.
a little late. Sorry, Governor. We'll take Daniel's question and then we'll close it out. I didn't see his hand.
Okay.
I guess I have two questions. One is sort of general and one sort of specific. The general question, I think for the governor is what would you like people to sort of take away from this awareness campaign? What is the sort of central message, would you say? And then my specific question is, I know that the Ely Conservation Camp is closed, and I'm just wondering how that gap might be filled and if there are any issues related to fighting fire from that closure.
Thanks,
Well,
Daniel. I think Governor can answer the first question, and then
Okay.
maybe we pass it off to one of our experts on the second half.
Thanks.
Okay, Megan?
Sorry, Governor, I talk over you all the time. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm getting used to it. Daniel, in response to your first question, what we can do as residents in Nevada is be aware. As you'd heard from a lot of the comments, the majority of these fires are caused by humans. There's not a lot we can do about lightning strikes and those sort of things, but we need to do more to prevent fires, to take precautions, to listen to the recommendations that come forward from the various agencies in highly sensitive areas and in drought conditions that we're dealing with whether it's with shooting, it's with campfires, it's with the various things that happen. And if we can just eliminate or greatly reduce the number of fires that are caused as a result of human behavior, that'll go a long, long way. And as it relates to Ely, I don't know who's going to answer that one.
Governor, I think Casey is prepared to talk about that, so we'll kick it over there.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Daniel. I'm happy to speak to that. We have been working with the Department of Corrections bi-weekly to discuss this issue. As I'm sure you're aware, it is a staffing issue for the Department of Corrections that caused the closure of the Ely camp. We do, the Division of Forestry does still have crew supervisors employed and doing work every day. They're just a crew of crew supervisors. So they are going out to project, doing everything that they can do to still continue helping in that area. It did reduce our fire staffing a little bit, but we also had kind of foreshadowed that it wasn't going to open early. So we did move some positions into other camps to try to combat the loss of fire crews. So we are working diligently to get other staff up and trained in other camps and try to provide that fire response from other camps. As you are aware, we have 9 camps throughout the state, 1 female camp in Jean, and 8 male camps around the state. So we will try to provide that additional support to the Ely area and where Ely used to respond to from other camps. Just so you know too, we also can pre-position our assets, and we do that. So all of us do that across the board. We're looking at high indices. If the indices warrant down south that the fire risk is high that day, we may move assets from northern or eastern Nevada down to the southern part. So we do that collectively. We all look at that together and send the assets that we can. I also would like to mention that one thing that we didn't mention through the process, but as many of you might have been aware, in the last legislative session, Senate Bill 508 allocated about $5 million to the Division of Forestry to match other grants that might come in. It was matched with a Forest Service project, some Forest Service funds, and largely an NV Energy agreement to reduce fuel across the state. That agreement has been in place for quite some time. We treated about 10,000 acres. One of the things that we did was subgrant a lot of that to local government fire protection districts to try to increase initial attack response, but also increase the crews that are on the ground to reduce fuels in high priority areas. So we've increased the local government workforce by 130 firefighters to date. We are still working on some agreements with, say, Elko County and other areas. We've got 19 type 5 and type 6 engines additional this year in local government, and a whole slew of chip trucks and chippers and water tenders, masticators, a whole bunch of stuff. So their daily job is fuel reduction in high risk areas, but we also move them around the state to try to ensure initial attack coverage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Danielle, I hopefully think that answers your question. Governor, do you want to close us out and take us home?
I'd be happy to. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody for joining us, particularly our staff that are partners that have provided such valuable information. We are very concerned moving further into the wildfire season. As you've heard from all of our subject experts, there's a lot we can do to minimize or reduce the effects this is going to have. Understand that fires don't know boundaries, state boundaries or anything else. I'm in constant communication with our, adjoining governors as it relates to this, to try to share resources and ideas and to communicate and so forth. And we will continue to do that throughout the fire season and the rest of the year to assure that we can do the best possible protecting our state, protecting our resources, and mostly protecting all of our residents. So with that, thanks for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon.